What's up, dedicated Dragon Ball denizens? I am Ryan, and I'm excited to be here today for another episode of the Hawks Dragon Ball Nest. Now, this time we've got something a little bit different by request from one of my viewers. I decided to get a how to play the game overview, and really good idea. I really love the idea. As a person who wants to bring more people into Dragon Ball Fusion World, I think it'd be great to have some videos trying to explain how to play the game. So this video is going to show the basics of how to play the game. So in this particular episode, we're going to get into the deck requirements and the card breakdown. So that's going to be part one of this, and then we're going to have multiple parts that are going to be showcasing like decks and like specifics of the colors, but this one's going to be kind of an overview of like how to build a deck in general, what the different card types are, what they do, and all of that. And then next time, the next video, which will also come out this week, then we are going to do a battle overview. So once you have your deck built, and then next time I'll give you more in depth of the rules of how the battles go. And then from there, we'll go probably every couple weeks. I'll swap between my rogue decks and the how to play videos until I get through all of the how to plays. And we'll kind of highlight just how to build specific decks, as each color does have its specific style of play. So let's jump into it. But before we do, please hit that subscribe button so that you can become part of the Hawks Nest. We are a growing flock of fabulous folks who love to do what we love. I love Dragon Ball Fusion World. I hope that you love it too. And I hope any new player watching this video or aspiring player loves this video and loves the game too. It's a super fun game, so I really want to get into this. So let's start off by just kind of showing some examples of what a few decks look like before we really get into the nuts and bolts of how to play. So let's have a look at a practice deck here. Well, not necessarily a practice deck. This one I think is pretty much the base set of one of our Goku starter decks, right? And every deck in general can have between 51 and 60 cards. 51 including your leader. Your leader doesn't necessarily count as a card in my opinion, because he just or she can just kind of hangs out outside and that's where your life is at, right? You don't draw that leader. It's always out. It doesn't get discarded or anything like that. So your leader is one of those cards. So most decks, though, stick around that 51, where they like to have 50 plus the leader. But you can have up to 60 total cards, including your leader. You have one leader, and then you can have any combination of between battle cards and extra cards. And I'll talk a little bit more about what a leader, battle, and extra card is in a few minutes, but just in general, that's kind of where we're at. And then each deck, at least right now, there are rumors that it could change in the future, has to have all of the same color. So this particular deck is going to be Goku as the leader, and then you build your deck around that leader and what their color is. Down here, we'll see that there's a little R right there. That stands for red. I'll talk a little bit more about what some of the other colors are, but there are red, yellow, green, blue, and black as colors in the deck. And then from there, you can have up to 4 of the same type of card in a deck. As you see, there are a lot in this deck. There's a lot of cards with 4 of them in there. For example, this Piccolo is 4 of these Piccolos, which are actually by the card number down here, which we'll talk more about. So you can have more than one Piccolo, more than 4 Piccolos, but you can't have more than 4 of this particular one. Like, for example, we're going to see that we have 4 of these Whis, and then we have 2 of this other type of Whis, and then we even have, where's my super combos? Oh, right here, never mind. We don't have 4 more Whis. I had a different deck that had 4. But yeah, we can have a bunch of them, right? We've got a bunch of Gohans here, but that's kind of the general gist of what a deck is going to look like. And you do sometimes have alternate versions of the same card. Like, for example, we have this Goku and we have this Goku, but you'll notice they both have FB01-139-139. So I can only have 4 total of those cards, even though the picture looks different on the 2 of these cards, right? So that is in general. So let's jump into a little bit more specifics of what each type of card does. All right, now first let's go over leaders, because as I mentioned, leaders are how you build your deck. You build your deck around those leader cards, and just in general, I'll give you some overview on them. But then when we get into the battle cards, we'll talk more about what their abilities mean and how to use them and things like that. Right. So what I have up here is our Vegeta leader, Blue Vegeta. So what you'll see is every leader starts off at their kind of basic front end of the card, as we see here front, and then later on in the battle, that when certain conditions are met, usually you getting to a certain amount of life, then you are going to awaken that leader and he gets to power it up. He powers up and he gets different, usually much more powerful abilities. You start the game with 8 life, and each, when a life is taken from you, then you take that card, usually is going to go into your hand. Sometimes it will go into your drop, discard, graveyard, whatever you want to call it. So in this case, we see Vegeta starts out at 15,000. That's his power. He has an ability when attacking, he draws a card, and then when he gets to 4 or less, you draw a card and then flip the card over. When it is flipped over, this is the back of the card. Then, as you see, he gets Super Saiyan. He awakens to Super Saiyan, still drawing a card upon attack, but then he has a activate main once per turn ability that lets him power up to with 15,000 strength if you have 7 or fewer cards in hand. And as we'll see, there's a lot of cards that then would go into that same deck that are probably going to be 7 or less, right? So now let's see some other leaders. This is kind of basic unawakened leaders. Vegeta as the blue one, we just saw that. And then we see Broly. Broly also at 15,000. When attacking, draw a card. But notice here, this is an interesting one to awaken. When your life is at 4 or less, just like Vegeta, add 1 card from your life to your energy in rest mode. So that takes another life. When you awaken him, you actually go down to 3. And then flip the card over, which sounds, oh man, that sounds really bad. But let's see what his ability is when we flip him over in a minute. Before that, though, let's look at Beerus. So Beerus, God of Destruction, he is actually critical. So when this card inflicts damage to life, the life is placed in the drop. So rather than it going to your hand, as I mentioned, because Beerus is critical, if you get hit by him, it goes into your drop and you don't get it into your hand. And then another interesting thing about him, permanent your turn, this card gets 5,000 power. So not only now does he get stronger on your turn, but the life that he inflicts goes into drop. So this is a guy that wants to attack another leader. Then when your life is at 4 or less, flip the card over, draw a card, similar to the rest of them, or at least Vegeta. Then we see the Awaken, as we already went through Vegeta's ability of having 7 or fewer in hand. He gets 15,000 power on your turn. We see Broly, though, so now we see why he's 25,000 power as his base without needing 7 or less. And then you see his ability once per turn, place 1 of your energy in your drop, draw a card, and then this card gets 5,000 power for the turn. So he doesn't draw upon attack, but he does draw when you place an energy and drop and get 5,000 power. So he can go up to 30,000 power, and you don't have to be with 7 or fewer in hand like Vegeta. And we see Beerus. When attacking, he does draw a card, and then once per turn, you can activate this, choose one of your opponent's battle cards, and it gets minus 10,000 for the turn. So whereas Vegeta focuses on powering himself up, and that's a lot of what Blue does in general, we'll see Red on Beerus's end, he works on weakening your opponents. He's God of Destruction, makes sense. But even other leaders in the red color all pretty much function similarly. Green, we can't really tell too much from this Broly, but green is a lot about energy manipulation. And your energy is how you're going to play cards. So you're able to ramp up that energy or use that energy as a resource to do things like what Broly's doing in powering himself up. So let's have a look at Vegeta when he awakens. Let's go. And then, next up, we're going to have a look at Vegeta using his ability to power himself up to that 35,000 attack and then landing a hit. And actually, we got a nice little animation of landing this hit too. go. Direct hit. Now let's look at the battle cards. This is really where you're going to understand the majority of the game, is by understanding these battle cards. And there's some similarities between the leaders. We'll see that they do have this number up here. Battle cards do have an additional number here. They do notify battle. They do have a name and usually a description under there, which we'll talk about. So anyway, let's get into that. So what is this? This number right here is the cost to play that card. All cards cost energy to play. All right, so that means this card costs 1 energy to play. And we'll talk more next time about how to get energy and like what that means when we get into the battle section. But for now, just know it costs 1. This 15,000 is its attack power. So a card can attack your opponent's cards. You can either attack your opponent's leader, as we notice leaders have power as well, or you can attack battle cards that are in rest mode or have already usually attacked on the previous turn. When we're looking at this, the tiebreaker goes to the attacker. So if this Vegeta were to attack another 15,000 power card, then he would technically win and beat that card if your opponent decides to do nothing with it. However, next up we have this number. This is the card's combo power. So any card that is not in rest mode, whether it's on the battlefield or cards in your hand or your opponent's hand, can be used to combo or add power to the attacking or the defending card. So for example, if this Vegeta were going up against, let's say, Broly, who's awakened, we might attack for 15,000 and then decide that I want to add on another maybe I have a second Vegeta in my hand, and I will add 10,000 power by comboing to get to 25,000, and then he would win the tiebreaker against Vegeta. Or if your opponent's attacking you, and maybe they're attacking with the 20,000 card to this Vegeta with 15, I can combo another card from my hand with 10,000 power like this one, and I would be able to defend that card. Now, down here, this is the special traits. These are important because there are a lot of abilities and other extra cards that play off of the card's special traits. A lot of your decks are going to be built around this. There are Saiyans, there are a Tournament of Power, there are things like, even the Pride Troopers, all kinds of different special traits that are important to know to help build your deck around. Right down here, this is the card number. As I hinted on it, you want to know what that card number is because you can have maximum of 4 of a certain card in your deck. Then the color, this down here is the color. Oddly enough, this blue is blue, because we also have black, and black is B. So there's blue, red, green, yellow, blue, red, green, yellow, red. No, what's the last one? Blue, red, green, yellow, black. That's 5. Okay, there we go. Okay, so that Vegeta did not have an ability. A lot of times these one-cost cards like that are cheap and they don't have abilities, although many of them still do. Now let's look at this Vegeta. A lot of times you'll see they look a lot cooler. The higher cost the card, the cooler it looks. So this Vegeta has 4 costs, so he costs 4 energy to play. And you'll see it's a pretty strong card, 30,000 compared to our 1-cost Vegeta's 15,000, double. But then we're going to see he has even more abilities. On play, we get to play up to 1 Bulma with the cost of 1 from hand, and then he has a second ability, Activate Main, once per turn. If you have 7 or fewer cards in hand, this card and your leader get 5,000 power for the battle. So, before we get into what that ability does, and you don't need to understand it too much, we have types of abilities. These are the main ones here. On play. On play means that that ability activates only as soon as you play that card. So if you do not choose to activate it then you will not play it. For example, here, on play, we can play 1 Bulma with a cost of 1 from our hand. So we can do that immediately. If we decide not to do that on play, because maybe we don't have a Bulma in hand or we forget, then we can't use that ability later. Activate Main means that you are using that ability during the main phase of your turn. There are different phases. I'll just demo those, which are charge phase, main phase, and battle phase in there. We'll talk more about them in the next video when we go over the battles, but that means that you activate that ability in the main phase. You're not in a battle and not in charge mode. And activate battle is just the opposite. You're using that only during a battle. It doesn't mean that the card that has the ability has to use that, has to be in battle, but a battle has to be going on between you and your opponent's card. And then sometimes there are specifications of your turn or your opponent's turn. If there are not specifications, you can use it either or, but many cards only work on your turn and many only on your opponent's turn for defense. And then sometimes we have a permanent ability. Permanent, it does not need to be declared or activated. It is always going to be there, whether it's your turn, your opponent's, main, battle phase, doesn't matter. All right, so let's look at a few other battle cards with abilities. We see this Bulma card is a 1 cost, and it does have an ability. On play, draw a card. This is one of, pretty much every color has 2 or 3 different types of 1 cost cards that are going to draw you a card. Just really good to ramp up and get you going for your hand. Usually want to have 4 of those, as you saw with my Goku deck. The Goku deck, the Piccolo, I had 4 of those, which are on play, draw a card. Then we start getting a little bit more complicated with higher cost cards. These are some really nice cards that I chose because they look great. But we see this is Vegito. He's a 3 cost card, 25,000 power, and permanent your turn. If you have 7 or fewer cards in your hand, reduce the cost of battle cards in your opponent's battle area by 1. So you might ask, what's the point of reducing my opponent's battle cards? Well, let's read the next ability of On Play. So On Play, choose one of your opponent's battle cards with a cost of 1 or less and place it at the bottom of their deck. So this helps you. If not for this ability, if you have 7 cards or if you have 8 cards or more in hand, then this works just as is. But if you play this Vegito and you have 7 or less cards, you can actually place a 2 cost card at the bottom of their deck, because that 2 cost is reduced to a 1 cost. So there's a lot of things to do. And let's say that you already have a Vegito out there on field, because this is a permanent ability, and you want to play a second Vegito. Now a 3 cost card becomes a 1 cost, and you can do it. So there's many ways of combining abilities together to make things happen. So that's pretty cool. And this one plays too. Notice the 7 or less in hand goes really well with our Vegeta leader, and this is a blue card. Now let's look at another fun ability. I like this one, is Cooler. He's a 4 cost card with 30,000 power, and he has an ability that is Blocker. So Blocker says that after an opponent's attack, you may switch this card to rest mode and change that target to this card. So he basically blocks your opponent. Let's say you have your opponent who is 20,000 power attacking your leader, and you do not want your leader hit because you do not want to lose a life. So you can activate this Blocker ability with Cooler, and now that 20,000 hit is directed at Cooler, who has 30,000 power and is not enough. But check this out too. He has a second ability, either when he attacks or when he blocks. Choose one of your opponent's battle cards and switch it to rest mode. Then if that card has a cost of 2 or less, KO it. So you can automatically KO a card that has 2 cost or less. And putting a card into rest mode means that it cannot attack and it cannot be used to combo. Rest mode usually happens after you attack. Then for the most part, that is when your cards are going to be put into rest mode. So that means he's stopping an attack from happening potentially, and maybe even knocking a card out. Now let's get into the big gun attackers. These are big dogs that have a lot of power here. And as you notice with Cooler too, usually the better the ability and power, the lower the combo power. So these guys, Bardock and this Goku Ultra Instinct, have 0 combo power. We'll talk a minute about the King Vegeta. He looks a little bit different than the other two. So why is he here? We'll talk. Anyway, notice this one is a double strike ability. So this card inflicts 2 damage instead of 1 when attacking. So that means this is a card that you want to use on your opponent's leader. You can attack another card, but it's not going to, this ability will not do anything. You can't KO a card twice. You only KO it once. So he is going to inflict 2 life instead of 1. A lot of times this is used as a finisher to finish off your opponent when they are down to 2 life but don't have a lot in hand. He's just alone with his 35,000 attack power, that is a lot. Then he's got some additional abilities, and a lot of times these double strikers do. If you have 2 or more cards in your combo area, choose one of your opponent's battle cards and KO it. So not only can you attack your leader, you're going to combo 2 cards, power him up even more, and just KO one of your opponent's battle cards. Pretty good ability. Another example here is this Goku, and you see this is a super powerful card, and it has 6 costs to play, but he has 40,000 power, and then on play until the end of your opponent's next turn, negate the next damage you take. So that means your opponent can attack your leader. You can just let the hit go through without using any combo cards or whatever, and the damage will be negated. So really good. But then when attacking, choose all of your opponent's battle cards and they get minus 20,000 power for the turn. So that's a crazy move that you can do. Let's say that all of your cards on the board are 20,000 power or less. They lose 20,000. And another way of KOing cards is to get their battle power to 0. So for this Goku, he can, for example, attack your leader for 40,000 and then reduce all of your battle cards minus 20,000 and KO anything that gets to 0 or less. So that is pretty good. Now, King Vegeta, what is he doing here? He has this ability, it's called Super Combo, and you note a maximum of 4 cards with Super Combo can be placed in a deck. So not only can you only have 4 of these King Vegetas, but you can only have 4 total super combos, so you can't put anything else with super combo. You could, let's say, play a King Vegeta, 2 King Vegetas, and 2 other super combo cards, but overall just 2. So what does that do? Let's see. Auto, opponent's turn. When you use this card in a combo from your hand, this card gets 10,000 combo power. So he starts off at 10,000. If you use it on your turn, only adds 10,000 to the attacking card. But if you use it to defend one of your cards from being attacked, then now 10 plus 10 is going to be 20,000 power to defend with. So these are cards that you want to keep in your hand. You note that they are 7 cost, and for the most part that is to kind of prevent them from being taken back out of your drop. But this is 15,000 power. He is not going to be played. You keep these cards to defend yourselves. And let's kind of play out a scenario where we're going to get to see some of these abilities in action. All right, now watch this sequence. We're going to ability. We're going to rest him. And then he's still too weak. But we can super combo. And then we see how that goes. And then I'm even going to use my leader ability. I'm going to discard from hand, which activates his ability. I'm going to restand him. And it helps me draw a card with his ability. And now I defended and I have another defend. Because his ability is discard a card from your hand, and I get to choose one to return from rest mode. So pretty cool little sequence there. And then guess what? He gets to block again. And now, this time, he's actually stronger. Don't need to use this ability. And finally, we are at the last type of card, which is extra cards. You'll kind of notice that there are some similarities to them. They still have a cost to play. They still are color-coded. And they all have abilities. However, you will notice most of them, unless you get some kind of full art or alt art versions, have pretty much kind of white as their base, as their borders on the cards. They all have nice little abilities. So we have Gallic Gun. Gallic Gun is one of my favorites in blue, so you choose your leader or up to one of your battle cards, and it gets 15,000 power for the battle. If you have 7 or fewer cards in your hand, draw a card. So not only can you power up to either increase your attack power or defense power, but then if you have 7 or fewer cards, you get to draw another card. So it can help you if your hand's getting a little bit low and you need some more cards, and to increase attack power to help you either KO or not. And note, it's activate battle. There's no specifications on your turn or opponent's turn. It can be used on either one. Let's look at this one, Tournament of Power Arena. This is a field card. If you've ever played, I'm very familiar with Pokemon. This is almost like a stadium in Pokemon where it's a field. It remains in the battle area until you place another field. The difference between Pokemon is that you and your opponent can both have a field. You playing a field does not cancel your opponent's out. You can potentially play another field over it, and then it would get go into your drop, but it stays there. And notice what is cool about this one. Activate battle, switch this card to rest mode, choose your leader or up to one of your battle cards, and it gets 5,000 power for the battle. So this is something you can use every single turn. So that you can just give one of your cards 5,000 power, whether it's to attack or defend. So not too bad. Then finally we have a more defensive card. So this is Time Rewound. Activate battle, but it does specify here opponent's turn. Choose your leader or up to one of your battle cards, and it gets 20,000. Pretty good power, 20,000 power for the battle. Then choose up to one of your battle cards and switch it to active mode. So a lot of times you might do something like use this if your leader is being attacked or one of your battle cards that you don't want to get knocked out. You give it enough power to survive the battle, and then it can switch to active mode so it cannot be attacked again. So that's a good way of defending some of your cards. Very good defensive piece of extra. Alright, so here's a nice defensive move that I'm going to use right here. So I'm going to gain myself some power here to deal with this Gohan that's attacking with Time Rewound, which is used on defense. And then I'm going to unrest my Goku so that now he's not able to be attacked. Now the crazy thing is I still don't quite have enough to defend this. So but I still have 2 more energy left here. What I'm actually going to do here is use this one. No, they're both in rest mode. No, I will use this one and gain another 2,000 power. I was tempted to rest mode one of his and draw into it, but no, we won't do that. So that is going to give me a nice defense against this powerful Gohan. Whoa, it's the next day out here. I'm in a different shirt. I almost forgot to record the outro to this that I was editing. I was like, what in the world? But anyway, that's going to do it for this episode of the Hox Dragon Ball Nest. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this overview to the game. I hope I'm bringing in some new people. Let me know what you think. Are you starting to get it down? We still need some more to really understand things. So we're going to go into the next video, which is going to show you a little bit more of battles and what the battles look like, what each phase is like, what you do, what you should and shouldn't do during phases, and your turn and opponent's turn. So make sure you tune in for that one. It's going to be important. But from there, you should have a basic outline and be able to really get down and start getting into the battles. And then from there, the information videos that I will do will focus in on specific colored decks. So we'll go and give some information on there. Well, if you liked what you saw, please hit that subscribe button so you can become part of the Hox Nest. We are a fabulous flock of fearless folks who are loving doing anything that we're passionate about and love to support others in doing what they're passionate about. It's not just about being selfish and doing what only we want, but let's raise people up. You know, to get to the top, we don't push people down and climb over them. We raise them up with us. We all are going together. So that is what we are about here in the Hox Nest. If you're not quite ready to fly yet, just hit that like button. Let us show up in an algorithm near you. But until then, we will see you next time.